This is the emotional, real-life story of a kind-hearted woman who regularly fed a homeless man outside her bakery for years. What she didn't know was that he wasn't just any ordinary man. He had a past she couldn't imagine. When she finally gets married, 12 Marines show up at her wedding in full uniform, and what they reveal about the man she helped leaves every guest speechless. Before starting the story, make sure to subscribe the channel so that you don't miss any update in future. She didn't know his name, just that he was always there, sitting quietly outside her bakery, day after day, through rain, snow, and sweltering heat. Most people ignored him. Some looked away. Others whispered things she chose not to hear. But every morning, without fail, she stepped out with a fresh sandwich, a warm coffee, and a gentle smile. He never begged, never spoke much, just nodded in thanks, took the food, and disappeared before noon like clockwork. At first, she thought it was nothing, just kindness, just decency. But then, strange things started happening. One morning, she found a small, folded note inside her bakery door. The handwriting was shaky, the paper old and weathered. It read, "I haven't said much, but I see everything. One day, you'll understand what you've done for me." She looked around. He was gone. And for the first time in years, he didn't come back. She waited. One day passed, then 2, then 5. But the bench outside her bakery remained empty. No note, no sign. No one knew his name, let alone where he might have gone. And slowly, life moved on, or at least tried to. But she couldn't. Every time she passed that bench, her eyes searched for him. Not because she missed giving him food, but because she missed his silence, his presence. The kind of calm that made the world feel a little less harsh. Weeks turned into months. Then one night, long after the bakery had closed, she heard a knock. Soft, hesitant. When she opened the door, it wasn't him. It was a young man in uniform, a Marine. Stoic, formal. But his eyes, there was something familiar about them. He looked at her and said, "Are you Miss Rachel?" She nodded. "Ma'am, I have something to tell you, but not here. You might want to sit down for this." Her heart pounded. Why would a Marine be standing outside her little bakery? What did he have to do with a man she hadn't seen in months? She didn't know it yet. But that knock was about to open a door to a past far bigger than her small town. Inside the bakery, the air felt heavy. Rachel sat across from the Marine, hands trembling around a cup of untouched tea. He placed a folded photo on the table. She picked it up, her breath catching mid-inhale. It was him. The same man who sat outside her shop for years, only younger, cleaner, standing in uniform. Back straight, eyes sharp, a badge gleaming on his chest. His name was Sergeant James Rowe, the Marine said quietly. 3rd Battalion, U.S. Marines. Retired, honorably. Rachel blinked, stunned. James? A Marine? The man who barely spoke, the one everyone ignored, had once worn medals and marched in parades. She felt a sting behind her eyes. Why didn't he ever say anything? The Marine paused, as if choosing his words carefully. He didn't want anyone to know. He was broken, ma'am. After what happened overseas, after what happened to his unit, he lost everything. Rachel's heart sank. He wasn't just homeless. He was grieving, buried alive under memories he never shared. And yet, he came to her bakery. Every day. Quiet. Respectful. Never asking for help. Just receiving the only kindness left in his life. A sandwich, a smile, and a few minutes of peace. That's all he ever wanted. But then the Marine said something she didn't expect. "You're in his will, Miss Rachel. That's why I'm here." Rachel stared at the Marine, unsure if she'd heard him right. In his will. Her voice was barely a whisper. The Marine nodded and pulled out a weathered envelope from his inner coat pocket. It had her name on it, handwritten, Rachel May Williams. She reached for it slowly, like it might vanish if she moved too fast. The paper was soft, fragile, like it had been held too many times. And when she opened it, her hands began to shake. Inside was a single-page letter. No lawyer talk. No money talk. Just him. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. I didn't have much to leave, Rachel. But what I did have, you already gave me. A reason to keep breathing. You probably thought those sandwiches were just food. But to me, they were life. They were dignity. They were proof I wasn't invisible. Rachel wiped her eyes, but the tears just kept coming. There were days I was ready to give up. Days I almost did. But then there you'd be. A cup of coffee. A smile that didn't pity me. And somehow, that was enough to stay one more day. Her chest tightened. She had no idea. No idea that something so small, so routine, could have meant everything. But the letter wasn't over yet. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "If they let me have a say, I want you to be the one who tells my story. Because if people knew what kindness can do, maybe they'd stop walking past others like me." Rachel looked up, tears blurring her vision. The Marine was watching her, his own eyes damp. And then he said, "That's not all. There's one more thing, and it's the reason I'm really here." Rachel folded the letter gently, almost afraid it would tear under her touch. The Marine reached into his coat again. But this time, he didn't pull out paper. He handed her a small, black velvet box. She looked at him, confused. "Open it." Inside, a silver pin. Worn, polished by time. An insignia, the Marine Corps emblem. But it wasn't just a symbol. It was his. The Marine cleared his throat. "There are 12 of us, ma'am. 12 men who owe their lives to Sergeant Rowe. We served under him. We bled with him. And we survived because of him." Rachel froze. "He never said a word." "He wouldn't," the Marine said. "He never wanted to be a hero. But he was. He saved us in Kandahar back in '09. Took bullets. Carried 2 of us out on his back. Stayed behind while we escaped." Her breath caught again. "Why are you telling me this?" The Marine smiled, but it was a broken kind of smile. "Because we're telling his story now. Just like he asked. And we're not doing it alone." He stepped back from the table, and Rachel heard the soft march of boots outside. 12. 12 men in dress blues, standing in formation outside her bakery. Still. Silent. Honoring a man the world forgot, except her. She opened the door, and the air went still. And then, in perfect unison, they saluted her. Not because she was a soldier, but because she fed one. Because she saw one. And for the first time in years, Rachel realized. The man everyone ignored had built a brotherhood that never left him. Even when he had nothing, he still had them. As the Marines stood silently, Rachel felt her knees weaken. She didn't know whether to cry, smile, or both. "Why are they here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The lead Marine stepped forward again. "Because he left you more than a letter." Rachel blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He pulled out a second envelope, this one thicker. "Legal documents. And on top, a title deed." Her fingers trembled as she read the first line. "Transfer of property ownership, 227 Brookside Avenue." She felt dizzy. That's this address." The Marine nodded slowly. "This bakery. It's yours now." Silence. Her bakery? The same place where she had made him coffee, handed him sandwiches. He bought it with his pension, the Marine said. What little he had left after medical bills. He said if he couldn't serve anymore, he'd serve through you. Rachel staggered back, overwhelmed. This wasn't charity. This was purpose. A broken man had taken what little life gave him and poured it back into the only place he ever felt seen. She looked around her bakery like she was seeing it for the first time. Every table, every chair, every smile she had served over the years. All of it now a living memory of the man people used to walk past without a second glance. But then her eyes fell on something even stranger, a corner table near the window. A folded napkin sat there, clean, untouched, and on it, written in shaky ink, "You turned crumbs into comfort. Now turn this bakery into a home for the forgotten." Rachel's lips parted, but no words came out. This wasn't just a gift. It was a mission. And just when she thought the surprises were over, the Marine said one last thing. "There's someone else who wants to speak to you." Rachel wiped her tears, trying to catch her breath. "Someone else?" she asked. The Marine didn't reply. He simply pointed behind her to the counter. A small, dusty cassette recorder sat there, the kind no one used anymore. And taped to it, a sticky note with her name in his handwriting. "Rachel, play me when they arrive." Her fingers hesitated. She stared at it like it was ticking. Then she pressed play. The machine clicked. Static. A long pause. And then his voice. "Hey, Rach. If you're hearing this, I guess the guys kept their promise." She froze. It was his voice. Fragile. Slower than she remembered. But steady. Intentional. Brave. "I wasn't always the man sitting on your sidewalk. I used to have medals. A rank. Orders. Then came war, pain, silence." The bakery fell into absolute stillness. Even the Marines bowed their heads. "You never asked for anything, Rachel. But you gave me everything. Warmth. Dignity. The kind of kindness that doesn't ask questions." She covered her mouth, her body shaking now. "You probably never knew this, but every time you handed me that sandwich, I told myself, maybe today's worth staying alive for. And when I realized I didn't have much time left, I made my choice." There was a pause. A sigh. He was struggling now. "This place. Your smile. The smell of fresh bread. This was my battlefield recovery room. So I made sure it would never shut down. Not while you're here." Then, a softer tone crept in. "One day, when you're strong enough, I want you to turn this bakery into more than a shop. Make it a haven. A place where people like me walk in broken and walk out human." The tape crackled. And then his final words came, like a whisper carried through time. "Tell the world, not all heroes wear capes. Some wear aprons and serve hope on rye." Click. Silence. But Rachel? She was never the same again. For weeks after the wedding, Rachel didn't speak much. She'd show up to the bakery at dawn, unlock the doors like always. But something was different. She didn't play music. She didn't bake the usual vanilla almond muffins he used to like. She didn't even put up the new owner sign the lawyer gave her. Instead, she sat at that corner table, the one where he used to sit, staring at that napkin. "Turn this bakery into a home for the forgotten." The words echoed louder than any song. One night, the wind howled outside. Rain slammed against the windows. And still she stayed, notebook open, pen shaking in her hand. "What does that even mean?" she whispered. "How do you build a home for the invisible?" And then it hit her. She didn't have to make it perfect. She just had to make it open. No locks. No judgment. No minimum purchase. No expiry date on hope. The next day, she taped a handwritten sign on the door. Big letters. Bold ink. No logo. "If you're cold, come in. If you're hungry, take what you need. If you're tired, rest here. No charge. No questions." People thought she'd lost her mind. Customers whispered. Neighbors gossiped. Even friends told her, "You can't run a business like this." But Rachel didn't flinch. Because she wasn't running a business anymore. She was honoring a man who had nothing, yet gave everything. And slowly, something magical happened. One by one, they came. A boy who hadn't spoken since foster care. A mother escaping a violent home. An ex-con who hadn't touched fresh bread in months. They came with nothing but pain. And left with something they hadn't tasted in years. Dignity. Rachel wasn't just baking pastries. She was serving second chances. It didn't take long before whispers started spreading, quiet but unstoppable. From one grateful soul to another, the story traveled. There's a place downtown where they don't charge for a meal if you really need it. A bakery that gives hope when everything else fails. No Instagram posts. No viral hashtags. Just real people telling real stories. The boy who finally spoke, telling his foster parents, "Mom, I want to take them there one day." The mother who cried quietly in the corner, "For the first time, I feel safe." Even local shop owners began to respect the place, not because of profits, but because it had become the heart of the neighborhood. People started donating old blankets, clothes, books. Small acts of kindness that grew bigger than Rachel had ever imagined. And yet, Rachel never made a big fuss. She stayed in the background, quietly baking and serving. But inside, she felt a deep pride. This wasn't just a bakery anymore. It was a sanctuary, a place where broken hearts could mend with every slice of bread and every warm smile. And somewhere, deep down, Rachel knew. This was just the beginning. It was a cold, quiet night, the kind that makes you want to stay wrapped up in your blankets forever. Rachel was closing up, tired but content. Suddenly, the phone rang. A voice on the other end, shaky, urgent, told her the bakery had been vandalized, broken windows, smashed displays, graffiti sprayed across the walls. A hateful message, "Get out." Her heart sank. This wasn't just about bricks and glass. This was about fear, judgment, resistance. People who didn't want a place like this to exist. Rachel's hands trembled as she rushed to the bakery. The neighborhood she had fought to heal now seemed to be tearing her apart. But then, something unexpected happened. By dawn, the same people she had helped showed up. With brooms, with paint, with smiles. They weren't just customers anymore. They were her family. Together, they cleaned, repaired, and restored. And Rachel realized something powerful. This bakery wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who believed in second chances. The hateful words were covered up with kindness. The broken windows reflected the strength of a community refusing to be broken. And in that moment, Rachel found a new fire burning inside her. The morning after the storm, the sun rose brighter than ever. Rachel stood outside the bakery, watching hands, old and young, worn and hopeful, work together. Paintbrushes in one hand, warm smiles in the other. Neighbors who once whispered behind closed doors now laughed and shared stories openly. A kid who barely smiled before handed Rachel a homemade thank you card. A man who had lost everything brought fresh flowers, saying quietly, "You saved more than just this bakery." Rachel felt tears sting her eyes, but this time, they were tears of joy. She realized something profound. The bakery wasn't just a building. It was a living, breathing symbol of resilience. Every scar on those walls told a story. Every repaired window reflected courage. And the community? They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Because sometimes, it's not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get back up. Together. Rachel's mission was no longer just about feeding stomachs. It was about healing hearts. And in that healing, they found something even stronger than bread. Hope. The day of Rachel's wedding arrived, but no one expected what was about to happen. She walked down the aisle, heart pounding, not just because it was her big day, but because she felt the weight of everything she'd been through. The vows, the smiles, the laughter, all perfect. But then, out of nowhere, a surprise. 12 men, dressed in full Marine uniforms, stood up from the back of the church. Silence fell, then whispers. Rachel's eyes widened as they approached her, each one saluting with pride and respect. These weren't just any guests. They were the Marines she'd fed, the ones whose lives she'd touched without even realizing. Each carried a small box. One by one, they handed Rachel a folded American flag. The room filled with emotion. It wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of honor, gratitude, and respect. Rachel realized, right there, that her kindness had created ripples far beyond the bakery walls. That wedding wasn't just a celebration of love between two people. It was a celebration of hope, humanity, and the power of compassion. And as she looked at those Marines, standing tall and proud, Rachel knew one thing for sure. Her story was bigger than her. It was a story of a community, a family, and a heart that refused to give up. Never underestimate the power of a small act of kindness. A single light can brighten the darkest places. When we give from the heart, we don't just change someone else's life, we transform our own, finding hope, strength, and a reason to keep going. It's the little things filled with love and humanity that truly make the world a better place.